and welcome back to Mads World. I'm your host Mads, and I hope you've been enjoying the show so far. It's been a bank holiday this weekend in London, so obviously I've been out and about doing all sorts of things, and I have lost my voice a little bit, so you'll just have to go with it this week. If you have been enjoying the show, please remember to subscribe, rate and review, as it's the simplest way to help me out, or find me on social media and tell all your friends about it. I've decided to start reading out my favourite reviews each week from Apple Podcasts, so go and leave a review and I might read it out. My favourite review this week is from Chazza-1, titled "It Makes Me Feel Normal." Chazza says, "From disastrous dates to flinging feces out windows, this podcast has you feeling safe in the knowledge that you're not a weirdo. Well, you are, but you're just not alone. Fab listen, very real and down to earth. Love it, X." Thank you so much, Chazza. This week I'm lucky enough to be joined by queer body acceptance content creator Sara Puhto, aka Saggy Sara on social media. Sara posts photos to assist others in unlearning societal standards regarding different body aspects and overcoming their body insecurities by showing how bodies look different from being relaxed versus posed, and posting about different body aspects such as body hair, cellulite, stretch marks, etc., with the goal of normalising these things. In this episode, we chat about body acceptance, why trends surrounding women's bodies are so dangerous, challenging our internal bias, and stopping the negative thought spiral about our bodies. Oh, and of course, our funniest date stories as always. Hello, Sara.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm really good, thank you. Thank you so much for jumping on the podcast. I know it's taken us a few goes to get this organised, so I'm really pleased we can finally make it work.
Yes, of course. Thank you for having me as well.
Well, let's jump into our speed date question round, just so everyone listening can learn a little bit more about you. So my first question is, what are you most passionate about?
So that kind of changes a lot. I'm like one of those people that's like, oh, I'm really passionate about this thing, and then I'm like passionate about it for like a month, and then I'm like, cool, next thing. But the like basic like thing that's like always been there is like mental health awareness and just really caring about that and the education of mental health.
Amazing. And I feel like the work that you do through social media, like you can definitely see that as well. I mean, you're helping so many people with the content you create, which we'll get into a little bit later. My next question for this round is, what is your favorite recent pop culture moment or meme? You can be a meme as well.
Okay, so it's kind of like a meme, but not really. But it's also not super recent. But basically the 1975 tour, and yeah.
Obsessed. Oh my god, I'm so glad you said that.
It was so bad. Oh yeah, that just got me flustered all over Maddie again.
I'm obsessed. And have you seen their concert in is it not Lollapalooza. Was it Lollapalooza?
I think it was.
Yeah, like down in somewhere hot, and they just did so much. I was like, this is exactly what I needed to see today. And I wake up every morning, I'm like, what's Maddie Healy been up to for the last 24 hours? Let's find out on TikTok.
Did you see the Spanish version of Don't Throw Menthols on the stage?
Oh my god,
don't like
obsessed.
Menthols. I love you.
So good. I'm so glad you said that. None of my friends are like as obsessed as I am, so every time I talk about it, they're like, shut up.
No, because same. And then I designated one of my friends to be like the person who I send all like Maddie Healy memes to, but he doesn't actually really care at all. I'm just like, have these.
Yeah, it's just like an outlet. Like, just take it away from me. Oh, amazing. And well, this probably is a nice lead into my next question. Who is your current celeb crush?
Surprise, surprise! It is Maddie Healy.
Same. I say this so much. Fully same. Him and Sam Fender, I'm just like, I just want to be with you. I don't even care if you're problematic, which is just so unlike bad. Me. It's so bad. And I'm like, why am I like this?
And it's so bad, like, just being like, oh, who's your celebrity crush? And like, oh, Maddie Healy. I don't really have one at the moment, actually.
Yeah. Oh, God. I'm so glad that you've said that. Makes me feel better.
Evan Peters.
Okay, love him too. Oh, and Paul Mescal. It's just like, it's all just like the TikTok hyped up, like these weird fangirl. Do you know what? But it's probably like the fangirl community that I love more, you know?
Oh yeah, definitely. I love the comments. I love scrolling through the comment section and just laughing because people are so creative and fun. I'm just like, yes.
Oh, so good. My last question for this round is, what is your funniest dating story? Because this is primarily a dating podcast, and that's what I love to bring it all back to. So please hit us with your best dating story.
Yes, I actually like had to think about this for such a long time because a lot of my dating stories are either just like sexual or traumatizing. But the funniest one, we'll get into that one because, yeah. But
Please do.
basically, this was kind of like after I broke up with my long-term boyfriend. So I was kind of just like not sure how to date and
Hmm.
be a normal human being in the dating life. So then
Yeah.
I was just like going on random dates and stuff. And this was also when I had just moved into a new apartment as well. So eventually, when like I brought someone back, I was just kind of like, I don't have a couch for us to sit on. So I just like squished my bed blanket into this like couch. And I was like, oh, here's my couch. And just stuff like that. And I also didn't have electricity at the time because I literally went there the
What?
day after I got my keys. So I hadn't set up my electricity. So I was like, cool, I've got these candles anyway. And then at least like they were going along with it and they didn't judge me. And they're just like, oh, it's like a little ritual. Haha. And I was like, yeah.
Oh my God. It's like you've created this romantic scenario out of nowhere, and he's probably like, this is really intense, but I
You're
love
like,
it.
whoa. Oh, so good.
Oh, I love that story. Thank you so much for sharing.
You are so
So I've
welcome.
asked you on the podcast. I've asked you on the podcast to chat about body acceptance because you do some amazing work on social, and I've honestly been following your page for so long, and I just think the content you put out there is so different and it's so brilliant. And I just thought you could go ahead and tell me and our listeners a little bit about the work you do online and on social media and in regards to body and skin and body hair acceptance, and why you started doing that.
Okay, so yeah, thank you. Basically, I do body acceptance and body neutrality. Those are like my main two focuses. And I'll usually post either comparison posts showing a pose, like me posed, and how you would typically see someone on Instagram versus relaxed, just not flexing, not sucking my stomach in, and just vibing in my human body. And then sometimes, like, showing that comparison really gives you a visual representation of like seeing how much difference there is between posing and not posing because we typically see posed bodies constantly on social media while we're just sitting down scrolling. So when we see those posed bodies, we're like, well, I don't look like that. It's like you're not meant to look like that 24/7.
I think it's so important for people to see that as well. And there's not many people out there doing that. And I think, I hate saying that it's quite brave because it shouldn't be, but it is quite brave. And I think, yeah, you're helping so many people through that content.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I always like don't know what to say when people say it's brave because I'm like, it is if you think about it because of the society we live in. Can't really ignore that. But then, yeah, it's just one of those things that I'm like, thank you. I will take it as a compliment.
I mean, you absolutely should. It's a lot of work as well. Like I mean, even having a podcast, I'm like, God, there's just so much to think about and thinking of new content ideas. And are people going to like this? And putting that out there when you have such a big and vast audience as well. And I'm assuming, like, do you get a lot of trolls too? Because there's a lot of horrible people, especially men, on the internet.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like it actually gets like exhausting and I'm sure I'll get into it later with like some examples and things because I have so many. It actually is horrible. But lately I haven't had that many, but that's because like also my stuff isn't getting onto the explore page, which is where I usually get all the hate from. But and that's because
Yeah.
Instagram changed their guidelines. So all of my photos are now flagged as nudity or sexual solicitation, and I had to
Oh,
delete
I've heard
a
about this.
ton of photos. And now I'm trying to figure out like a
No.
way to like put more clothes on, I guess. So it's really frustrating because it's
Oh
like
God.
I'm just trying to help and getting flagged for all these things. It's really frustrating. Anyway.
Yeah. And when you're saying that you're trying to help, like obviously I think you're helping so much, but why do you think it is important and what made you want to start making content like this to help people?
Yeah, so basically, back in 2016, 2017, I was a fitness account and I was just
Hmm.
posting like my workouts and what I ate, and I'd like
Whoa.
exaggerate what I ate and only post photos of me flexing and like at certain times and be like, oh, just worked out, even though I didn't just work out. But
Yeah.
like feeding into that whole like fitness influencer thing. Nothing against fitness influencers. I was just taking it to the next level and I was like, this is so fake, because I would just look at myself and then compare myself to other fitness creators and be like, why don't I look like that all the time? Is there something that's wrong with me that I'm
Yeah.
doing wrong with my workouts and not getting like the same results as them? Because I
Hmm.
just assumed they looked like the version of them that they displayed on Instagram 24/7. So then
Yeah.
that's when I kind of started posting like those Instagram versus reality things in
Hmm.
2017, I think it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, from there on, it helped me when I posted that. And then other like content creators who also did fitness were like, whoa, I actually also feel like that. And I felt literally exactly the same, where I thought I was doing something wrong. And,
Yeah.
like still the whole
Yeah.
comparison thing. And then after that, it kind of like blew up.
Hmm.
So that's when I just fully committed to switching off like the fitness content and not
Yeah.
like feeding into not only my like insecurities, but like any insecurities that other people may have that I now have viewing my content.
Hmm.
And also I think it's really important, especially now in society, with how much like body hate and insecurity causing adverts there are. It's like important to have a little, I just want to be like a little safe space, little safe corner. And
Yeah.
it's just, I love doing this so much. And
Hmm.
if that means I can also help people with it, that's amazing and makes me so happy.
It's brilliant. And in speaking about insecurities and in the lens of social media, why do you think the trends surrounding women's bodies are so dangerous? So we've all seen those memes or that content of how the ideal female body shape has changed over time, whether it's Kim Kardashian or Kate Moss in the 90s or athletic in the 80s or, you know, back to Marilyn Monroe. Why are these trends so dangerous for modern women?
So I think they're dangerous, really dangerous, because they constantly change basically every decade. If you compare like early 2000s, people would turn around and ask, does this make my butt look big?
Yeah.
Or even in the 90s. And now it's, does this make my butt look big? Like, it better make it look big. So
Yeah.
imagine someone like having to change the size of their butt to fit
Hmm.
into the societal standards in a span of a decade. And it's just insane, because the amount of Brazilian butt lifts, BBLs, that
Hmm.
increased in the
Hmm.
last like few years is crazy. I don't know the exact statistic, but I remember seeing this and being like, that is kind of, it makes me feel a bit sad, because that trend
Yeah.
is again going to change in a few years to a decade. And
Hmm.
then, yeah, it's just a lot of money that goes into the beauty industry as well. And the fact that we can't actually really change our bone structure and muscles,
Hmm.
and these different body types that are going in and out of trend have different bone structure and muscle structure. So you just can't win with them. And
Hmm.
it's feeding off of our insecurities constantly and creating more and more insecurities, and which causes body dysmorphia and like eating disorders and all of that.
Hmm.
So yeah, capitalism in the beauty industry, I could go on and on about it, because it's, the
Honestly,
beauty
yeah.
industry is like $1 billion industry, and
Hmm.
it literally profits off of our insecurities that they
Hmm.
created. So
And do you think that that sort of comes from the patriarchy as well? So, how would you say that things like the male gaze and the patriarchy influence the body acceptance movement?
yeah, I do feel like patriarchy has like a massive role to play in it, because
Mm.
it's created this image of like the perfect woman. I can't remember exactly which decade it was, but thinking back to when it was like the perfect housewife who cooks
Hmm.
and cleans, and when the husband comes home, the dinner is there and everything like that. And I have this like image in my head. I feel like a lot of us do when we picture it. It's like the little dress that flows out and the
Hmm.
apron on and just
Hmm.
like smiling. And I feel like a lot, if not all, of the beauty standards, or yeah, all of that is like just created by the patriarchy and influenced highly by the male gaze. And it is this like created image and standard. And whenever we move away from it, or like with things like the body positivity movement or body acceptance movement or body neutrality movement, it's like trying to normalize normal bodies just existing. And I've noticed a lot of the pushback is mainly from men. And I've had comments from men, especially, being like, no man wants that. And I'm like, I don't want a man who wouldn't want me. Like,
yeah.
why are you assuming I'm also like looking or existing for men?
Or for a guy like that.
Me.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's interesting what you said about the 1950s housewife thing, because this sort of leads into the next question that I had, which was about body hair and why some women might feel like having body hair is dirty or bad. And going back to what we were saying about capitalism, I read somewhere that back in the 50s, they started advertising like women having smooth legs, and that's when they started advertising body hair as being dirty and unfeminine. And that sort of carried on, and now we're still feeling the effects of it now. But it was all just a money-making thing for razor companies, because they were selling lots of men's razors for their beards, and they were like, how can we open up the market and target women as well? But why do you think that some women might feel like having body hair is dirty or bad?
It's so funny because I literally searched the same statistic and I was going to talk about that.
Oh, really?
But, yeah. And I got like a whole quote ready. I was like, yes, to expand their market, promoted the idea that body hair on women is inherently masculine and indelicate, as well as unhygienic.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think, marketing and the way it's been marketed to us. And now it's like subconsciously ingrained in us because of these like unwritten societal rules that have taught us that, oh, women need to shave because otherwise we'll be unhygienic, which is just silly, because regardless of gender, armpit hair or like leg hair is the same hair. It's body hair.
And it's weird because the hair on our head isn't considered dirty, but other body hair might be considered dirty. And it's just, I find it really fascinating how we've sort of changed our perspective on this. It's so interesting.
Yeah, and I've noticed so many people are like bullied for it.
Yeah.
And because of like the way it is marketed. Also, have you noticed in most shaving ads, they're already shaved before they do the shave?
Oh my God, yes.
Bestie, what is happening?
Bestie, no, you're going to get ingrowns.
Yeah, you're going to get razor burn.
Oh my God. And have you found that the more, because you've done a bit of content around body hair acceptance and neutrality, like you were saying, have you found that you're more confident now that you are more outspoken about it? And, how have your friends and the people around you sort of reacted to that?
It was really interesting because back in my uni days, so when I kind of started doing all of the body acceptance content on my Instagram, I decided to just grow out my leg hair and my armpit hair, because I normally did that anyway during the winter, because I was like, there's no point, like,
huge mood. I do it too.
Yeah. And I had a long-term boyfriend at the time, and basically at one point, I was just kind of going through like a little exploration phase with my body, and I was like, I'm just going to grow out all my body hair, bleach it, and dye it pink. So I did that. It didn't last very long because
so
because
dramatic.
I was like sweating. I was like, what is the most dramatic thing I can do? 0 to 100.
That's so good.
Oh, I love me. Anyway. So I did that. The dye didn't last long because I was in South Africa and it was sweating. I was like sweating so much. So anyway, I can say that I've done that though. But yeah, basically, I don't know how my boyfriend's friends found out about it. Well, they weren't even his friends. They were just like in his class. And this one guy came up to him and was like, how do you feel that your girl doesn't shave? And then he was just like, he was like, if I don't shave, then why should she shave? And I was just like, thank you for being the best.
Is he still your boyfriend, or is he a past boyfriend?
No, past boyfriend, but we're still good friends.
He's someone you need in your corner. I feel like you need someone fighting the cause alongside you. When people have those negative comments, like, I bet, do you have people in your community when you get trolls, but people just go at them for you?
Oh yes, definitely. I
It's who you
love
need in
that
your
so
life.
much.
You're like, you just
Yeah,
go
because
do it.
sometimes it's like you don't have the energy to, or like you just you don't want to. So, but
Love
yeah,
that.
also um, I've noticed like all of my friends at the time and even now, like they're absolutely incredible human beings. And I've been
Mm-hmm.
so blessed to be surrounded by such kind and accepting
Oh,
people because, they didn't even like bat an eye. They were just like, oh, cool.
I feel like it's so great that you've got friends like that. Like, I've definitely still got, friends that would look negatively upon body hair that are female. And I think that comes from a certain internalized misogyny. And sometimes I feel it too. And I think challenging that can be really difficult. So, how do you think we can begin to challenge our internalized misogyny and our bias when it comes to body hair? Because do you know what I mean? I feel like it's just it's residual from when you're a teenager and people are telling you it's gross and stuff. But how do you challenge that?
Yeah, so I think it really depends on the person. Like for me, I know it's not for everyone, the route that I chose where I was like, let's just go hard or go home.
Yeah.
um, but basically kind of asking yourself why you're shaving and
Mhm.
if that reason resonates with you and you are fully comfortable with it. But
Mhm.
yeah, I think just questioning a lot of it is a good place to start because
Mm.
the arguments such as like it's unhygienic for a woman to have body hair, it's like where did that come from?
Mhm.
Because realistically and scientifically that doesn't make sense, because then that would mean that all body hair would be unhygienic.
Yeah, so let's just shave our heads. Like, let's just all be bald.
Exactly, but then it's like, because the body hair is meant to be there, and my favorite thing that people say is like, if it wasn't meant to be there it wouldn't be there.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like our body doesn't grow this hair for fun. It's not like hee hair for you.
It knows you hate it and it's just out to get
Yeah.
you.
It's like, oh, capitalism? Should I keep growing hair so we can like keep society going?
Keep spending
No.
money.
Yeah.
It's that evil.
Oh my. Yeah, no, but I also highly recommend following like especially women who
Mhm.
show their body hair on like social media platforms. I
Yeah.
know Queen Essie, she is good to follow on Instagram.
Mhm.
Like she has a lot of body hair acceptance and talks a lot about her body hair acceptance journey. So yeah. And I feel like also if you have a friend or someone close to you that is like down to do it with you and kind of like
Yes.
unpack these things together, or just like grow your leg hair out during the summer, it's a vibe when you have someone doing it with you.
It's so true. And I feel like as well you the more you see things, the more normal they are. And like that's kind of like why you said following things and changing the narrative around you and changing what you come into contact with every day on social, like even if it's not real life is a great first step.
Yeah, exactly. And at the end of the day, just do what is ultimately comfortable and makes you happy. And if that means not shaving, then don't shave. If that means shave, then shave, or whatever form of body hair
Mhm.
removal methods you want to use and which areas on your body you want to remove hair from.
Going in a little bit to fat phobia, I'd love if you could talk to me a little bit about thin privilege and how fat phobia influences this, because you do some really great work in this space as well. I think just normalizing normal bodies, which is such a strange statement because normal bodies should be
Yeah.
normalized. But yeah, if you could chat to us a bit about this, because I just love to get your viewpoint on it.
Yeah. So, in my personal opinion, I feel like because fat phobia exists, it's kind of like the driving force and the reason why thin privilege exists. And this isn't like me saying that thin people don't have struggles, everyone has struggles, but the way that people in larger bodies are treated in society
Mm,
is actually, it is so horrible how some people are treated and how some people think that's completely okay to judge
hmm.
someone based on the size of their body, and then that means like, oh, I can bully you now. Because
Yeah.
for me, like I am still a very small body,
Hmm.
and some of the comments that I receive over the years, it's disgusting,
Mm,
the extent that people go to and how much anger and hate there is, and how people assume that, oh, go gym is like the fix to everything. I'm just like,
yeah, and
my
there's so
guy.
many other ways. There's so many other ways to determine health as well, like apart from
Exactly.
our size. Like, I just think it's crazy because one of my other questions for you was the personal hatred that we have for our bodies and if it's something natural or something learnt. But if you think about an animal in the wild, like it doesn't care what it looks like. It's just so interesting, and it is so sad that we spend so much time thinking about these things. But when you're saying that, the bullying and the hatred that comes from people who are fat phobic, it's like they have this sense of superiority over fat people and that they can speak down to them. But yeah, where does that come from? Like, where do you think it comes from?
I think it's definitely learned because
Mm,
that's not like a normal way to treat people at all. And
yeah.
I mean, it comes from like people's parents, their like immediate family, what they're exposure to media. Because if you
Mm,
look at what, especially magazines in '90s and the early 2000s, they were disgusting. They're like top
mm,
30 bodies and top worst bodies, and then they would just put pictures of celebrities who have like a tiny bit of cellulite and be like, oh, horrific, horrible,
yeah.
disgusting. Can't believe they let themselves go. And I think a
Mm,
lot of people, like, maybe their parents internalized that and spoke to themselves that way, and then spoke around their kids that way about themselves or towards their kids, or projected their insecurities onto their children. And then these kids are then growing up and saying things like this in schools or just on social media. And I feel like because of social media, you can hide so easily and not put a face or a name to like what you're saying. So you can kind of like use that as an outlet to bully people to get rid of all the like negativity and anger in yourself. So I feel like that's why it's just gotten so insanely normalized and like big to bully people, and like as well as self-hatred, like the same form is like how it's like formed. Because if your parents are talking and saying like, oh, I need to go on a diet, like, oh, I wish my legs didn't look like this, you're going to look at your legs later, or whenever, like especially as a child, you look at yourself and mirror what your parent does. So if your parent is saying all these things, you're going to internalize it subconsciously and think these things. So yeah, I definitely do think it is all learned rather than being like innate.
I found it really interesting as well when you said people might make anonymous accounts to hide. And the
Yeah.
ironic thing is that they are hiding because they don't want to be at risk of people calling them out or, calling out their insecurities or knowing who they are or have it impact their own life. But the fact that they're hiding so no one will do that to them, so then they can go and do that to other people is just like what goes through people's heads.
Yeah, it really, at first it like confused and angered me, but nowadays it kind of like, obviously I do still get upset because it does hit like,
Mm.
it's like when they strike a little trigger for you, it's like that one hurt, thanks.
Yeah.
But like I do still feel like very, very, very bad for them, because the amount of that pain that person must be going through, like definitely not the right way to go about dealing with your hurt. But yeah, hurt people hurt people. I guess it's a saying because it's true.
Yeah, that's such a tolerant and empathetic way to look at it. I feel, yeah, very impressed and proud of you that you can look at it in that way because I think so many people like just instantly, and hatred just fuels hatred, doesn't it? When people are angry about this, then they're just putting more anger out into the world. But if you can try and look at something from someone else's point of view, I suppose that's the first step to sort of finding some sort of peace with these things.
Yeah. Like I do still get those little triggery upset moments. I'm like, "Ugh." But
100%.
yeah.
And I know we spoke briefly about cleaning your social media feed of anyone that is influencing you negatively and mentally, and sort of introducing new people and changing what you see every day. Is there any other tips that you think people could learn from if they are feeling the effects of capitalism and society telling them that they have these things wrong with them when they actually don't?
Yeah, I feel like also like in terms of social media, if
Mm.
it is someone who like personally that you can't unfollow,
Hmm.
a really fun tip that I like to use is muting people's
A
stories
really
and
fun tip.
posts. Fun tip, if you don't want to cause problems in your personal life, mute people. Because some people take it really like personally. So I'm like, okay, I'd rather not deal with this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think also just kind of keeping this in mind and reminding yourself that capitalism is a thing and they're profiting and creating insecurities. So do you really need to like buy these things? Or I think it's better to kind of place all of that energy that you would on worrying about which products to buy, instead putting it out into like searching for things either like on YouTube or self-help books for me have helped a lot, because I just kind of like, first of all, it like stops your spiral thinking for me at least. And I'm just like fully focusing on this like video or book and just taking the little tips that it has to like grow my self-acceptance. And I feel like when you grow your self-acceptance, you kind of internalize those things and can switch it to when you're trying to accept your body. And yeah, I think also starting with body neutrality is a good step. It's kind of like the stepping stone into body acceptance for me, at least.
Yep.
Because it really just says like your body is a body. It functions in the way it's meant to function. Appearance isn't a thing that you should stress out about because it is functioning well.
Yeah, and also maybe feeling grateful as well, like grateful that you have a body that works, and grateful that you have a body that can allow you to have sex or enjoy food or go for a run, or, you know, even having like eyes to read those books and just consume something that makes you smarter, you know, like it's so easy to get wrapped up in, oh, I wish I had this, or I wish I had a flat stomach, or I wish I didn't have cellulite. But then you just think of what so many people wish for that you have, and it feels so shallow, doesn't it, once you think of it like that?
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like reminding yourself of that, but then I know sometimes it'll be harder to shift the thought into that, which is where like body neutrality is also good. But yeah, it really puts it into perspective when you think about the things that your body can do rather than not like, oh, what does my body not look like?
I think another thing for me in terms of stopping that negative thought spiral is putting work into other areas of your life that, you know, aren't to do with the way you look. And maybe that's about how you feel, or, you know, if it's journaling, and that can sort of, you know, increase your emotional intelligence. Or I read a lot of books, so every time I finish a new book, I've got like a big list and I put it on there and I just look at it and I'm like, I've just like consumed all this knowledge, and I feel like I'm helping to make myself smarter. Or, you know, if you reach out to your mom and you just have like a great like hour conversation, you can just think like, I'm just nurturing that connection. It's like you can put all the energy that, you know, hating your body is using into something that's productive, that you can feel proud of in another sense. I think that's like something that I try and do as well.
Yeah, definitely. That is such a good tip as well. And it's so funny because I just literally yesterday made a YouTube video on tips of what to do when you're having a bad body image day. So it does touch on like a lot of different tips that I haven't really seen in many places, but
amazing. What kind of tips are those? And I'll put a link in the episode description as well, so everyone can go and check it out.
Yeah, so they're kind of like so there's the typical like stay in the present moment.
Yeah.
But then finding using grounding techniques as like anchor thoughts to stop your brain from focusing on the negativity spiraling.
Oh, what kind of grounding techniques?
Yeah, so basically like naming 5 things that you can see, 5 things that you can smell, 5 things that you can feel, and then physically like going around and like feeling them, like, oh, I can feel the carpet on my floor, and then like touching it, and then really thinking about like, oh, what texture is this? It's a really good grounding technique for anxiety as well, if you're about to have a panic attack.
Oh, I love
that.
Is what I love having anxiety.
Oh, yeah. The roughest type.
Yeah. Oh, legit.
Not a vibe.
Oh, I'm going to have to go and watch this. I'm obsessed.
Yeah, I'm still in the process of editing it, but it should be up in a few days. But yeah, like also, this is like the one that's like a bit different where I like to give my brain a name and then give myself 10 minutes to rant and say all the bad things that are spiraling.
Yeah.
And then think about them and then put a timer on for the 5 to 10 minutes. Once that timer is off, you take that name that you gave your brain. I call mine Karen.
Classic.
I'm like, okay, Karen, we thought about these things. I said we already discussed it, so we're going to compartmentalize and move it and not think about it until the next time we need to, which is not now. It is not today.
No.
It is another time, Karen. And then also when you physically move into another room from where you did that whole activity in, it, because of the physical movement, it also helps the brain compartmentalize that as well.
Oh my God. Do you know what I read about this, the changing rooms thing? So you know how sometimes this is so fascinating. So you know how sometimes when you walk into the next room and then you're like, what did I come in here for? And you're like, I can't remember. So that's like your brain resetting. But apparently now there's also like the digital version of that. So you change apps and it has the same effect of walking through a door and your brain resetting. Because you know how sometimes you'll like swipe out of an app and you were going to like transfer someone money, or you were going to like check up on how a post is doing or something in a different app, and you just completely blank and you're like, what was I doing? It's the same thing, but it's like the digital version of that.
That makes so much sense.
Right?
And I hate that there's like now a digital version. Everything is becoming digitalized.
I know. I feel like such an old grandma when I hate it, but now I'm like, I just wish the internet would fuck off. Like,
no, literally. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It is not great, but it is where we are.
No, and it's like our whole livelihood as well. But at least we're using the internet to try and make it a better place. And thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Honestly, I honestly love your Instagram, and I'm someone who's always struggled with body issues, and I think that just comes from, I don't know, my background, everything we spoke about. And I really do think that it is a safe corner of Instagram when I go, and I'm sick of scrolling and seeing people calling out people's outfits at the Oscars and stuff. I'm like, you know what? I'm sick of this negative vibes. So I'm gonna go on Sarah's page.
Oh, thank you so much. That is so sweet to hear. It makes me like, yay,
I did it. But thank you so much for coming on. I hope you enjoyed my chat with the lovely Sara. Please let me know on my Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, whatever, if you have any stories or thoughts of your own to share about the podcast. Love and elbow taps. Peace.